Georgia, can you see me?
I can't.
Okay. I can't see me either, so I don't. This used to work fine. I don't know what happened to it.
Commission meeting for December the 8th, 2022. We as a commission operate under the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 26 of the Town of Danvers General Bylaw, the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. After each applicant presents his or her request and the board has had time to ask questions and discuss the project, we'll accept questions from the audience. Because this is a public meeting, it is required by law that you give your name and your address before you speak. Although we may disagree on the issues raised, all persons present during this meeting are expected to be civil to all other meeting attendees. This includes the members of the commission, staff, abutters, concerned citizens, property owners, and project applicants. We also request that you confine your questions to the project and only as it pertains to the Wetlands Act. We cannot handle, nor do we have jurisdiction over matters such as noise or traffic. All problems not related to the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Danvers Wetlands Protection Bylaw must be taken up with the other appropriate boards. Our first order of business is a roll call. Peter Wilson is present. Vanessa Curran,
Present.
Ann McGill,
Present.
and Michael Splain. Okay, Mike is absent, he cannot make
Mike
it
is
at all,
absent.
right? And as you probably might have noticed, I did not call Chelsea King. Chelsea has resigned her position as a member of the commission due to work constraints. So on behalf of the Conservation Commission and the town as a whole, I'd like to thank Chelsea for many years of dedicated volunteer service. We'd like to wish Chelsea good luck in all of her future endeavors, and hopefully we'll see her back in Danvers someday soon. That being said, we'll move on to first item is a request for a certificate of compliance for 8 Cortlandt Road, DEP file number 14-606. The applicant is DNR Law. Could someone give us a background on what this order of
Hi,
conditions was?
my name is Tracy. My name is Tracy Harding. I'm an attorney at DR Law. Our office is 2 Omni Way in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. This was an order of conditions that was set in September, recorded in September of 1995. I wasn't involved in the project at all. I'm just representing the homeowner now to have the order released.
Was this order issued to the current owner?
No, previous owner.
Okay, maybe you just help me understand. I thought when we had an order of conditions, there was an encumbrance on a title for a piece of property. So if that title changes hands, shouldn't this encumbrance be found?
The encumbrance should be found, yes, and we're seeking to have it released now.
So you found that in this particular transaction, but there's been previous transactions where this encumbrance has not been found.
I'm not sure on that, to be honest.
Okay, that's what we have here is, it's an encumbrance on a title that these.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how many transactions is what I'm saying.
Say again, please?
I'm not sure of how many transactions,
Right.
but I know it was a previous owner, yes.
Yeah, I just know that, I'm just speaking, venting my thoughts here, that, if there's an encumbrance on a title, that these titles shouldn't be changing hands. I'm not sure how that happens, or I don't understand why it happens. So, it limits our effectiveness if people can just go right around that. So that being said, are there are plans, Georgia? The property's been inspected?
Yeah, so I drove by, I did not physically go on the property, but I did review the old building permit sign off, so they did issue a certificate of occupancy for that structure back in '96. And then looking at Google aerials, it's in the location shown on the provided plan, so everything does appear as what was proposed.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let me ask the other members of the board if they have any questions. Vanessa?
No questions at this time.
Ann, any questions, comments?
No questions.
Okay, if someone can make a motion, we could issue an order, a certificate of compliance?
I'll make a motion that we that we approve a certificate of compliance for 8 Cortlandt Road, DEP file 14-606. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is a request for a certificate of compliance for the Crane River Sewer Easement, DEP file number 14-1361. The applicant is the Town of Danvers Engineering Division. And
Good evening, John Bobrick Engineering Construction, representing the Town of Danvers tonight on this project. The sewer main on the Crane River was replaced, and it was replaced in the exact location of the original pipe. If you've ever seen this, there's an old railroad bridge on the side of 128 if you're looking at the ocean, and there is a sewer main next to it that was in imminent failure. It was replaced over the winter and the spring, and there it is. Everything was completed in compliance with our applicable permits, and the project is done.
Okay.
Were there new footings?
Yep, there are 4 new piles that went in with this project. The old pipe, you can see, had old wooden piles that were on it.
I know.
Here, they remain.
Oh, okay.
We
yeah.
just cut them at the lowest we could get it.
Multiple.
Right.
And is it just the pipe that's above the surface that was replaced?
Yep, it's actually submerged at high tide, but yeah, just this pipe. It's a 24-inch steel.
Okay, good, thanks. I don't really have any further questions. Georgia, you've been out to see it, or?
I have not gone out, but two of our field techs have gone out, most recently this week, to observe the grass growth, and they had no concerns. My only question would be now, sitting here seeing the shopping carts in the photos, I do know those are sometimes physically hard to get to and pull out, so maybe I can coordinate with our field tech to have DPW go out there. I don't know if it's relatively on Boberg Engineering to go out now that the project's done, but I think it's on the town,
Perfect job for DPW.
yeah, to mind those, yes.
We actually did take out quite a lot of debris, and I would say that's new debris.
Okay, yeah.
Tires and whatnot were disposed of.
Is there a lot of traffic down there, the human traffic?
What kind of
Just
traffic?
human
Over the bridge?
traffic is-
Yeah, a lot of passive users go across the bridge, walking the rail trail, or to-be rail trail.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Ann, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I think we looked at the exterior before, and I've been down there, I've seen this. Other than the junk that people leave, I think that it looks fine.
Okay, good, thanks. Vanessa?
No questions.
All right, if someone can make a motion, we'll issue a certificate of compliance.
I'll make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for the Crane River sewer easement, DEP file number 14-1361.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next up is a notice of intent for 24 Princeton Street, DEP file number 14-1392. I understand that John and Jane are the applicants. Bill is here just to give us an informal presentation.
That's right.
And we will, but this is a public hearing, so we'll let you speak your piece, and then if anyone has any comments, and then we'll just continue to when you want us to.
All right. So my name is Bill Manuel, Wetlands and Land Management in Danvers. John McGurk is here. This is his project, his property. I think you all met him when we did the various site walks. And just very briefly, I have a discussion plan on the screen, and recall that I suppose the controversial portion of the project is the location of the barn, and in the outline in red is where we had positioned this barn so that we were right in the middle of this beautiful 36-inch oak tree, and there is another 18-inch oak tree right here. And remember, if those of you who were on the visits, it was all grass in between their flat lawn. You notice that we positioned it in that location so that we were in between the two trees, and our intent was that we would avoid the root structure of both of those trees and allow them to be saved. Originally, you could see here is the no disturb line right through there. We're just barely over it, and then there's the no build line right through there. And so we obviously needed a waiver. The commission gave it some deliberation, and they decided that they were not going to grant a waiver. We went away, and Mr. McGurk has done a lot of thinking, and he's brought this concept back to me, and I suggested we go to the commission first and have a discussion. Hopefully, we can get some positive feedback or useful feedback from my discussion tonight. John really wants to save this tree, this 36-inch oak tree. This purple box here is the same size barn, and you can see that his suggestion is to reposition the barn where the blue box is now the purple box. What that does is it gets it out of the no disturb zone. It's still in the no build zone there. You can see the no build line is right down the middle of that barn. But we are hopeful that we could stay just far enough away from that tree so that it can be saved. And the reason why we're hopeful on that is because of the type of footing and slab that is proposed here. And we talked about this a little bit when I was initially discussing the project. This is what we call a monolithic slab, so that it has the footings and the slab are poured simultaneously. So they're all one unit. And using that construction for this type of building here, the footing part only goes down 18 inches. And we're hopeful by having some separation between the oak tree and that monolithic slab that only goes down 18 inches, enough of the root system of the oak will be preserved that the tree can be preserved. And we would still need a waiver for the no build zone, but we're outside of the no disturb zone. What's not shown on the plan here is all the calculations, the table, the matrix that I have to go through to document that we meet the thresholds for the incursions into no build and no disturb zones. This will comply with that. My previous presentation with the outline in red did comply with all your thresholds, which would have allowed you to approve the project if you saw fit. We don't need the waiver for the no disturb zone. We still need it for no build zone, but there's less of the barn in the no build zone, so we have even less incursion. And we're hopeful that we can perhaps persuade a majority of the commission members in this scenario to allow the barn to be constructed where we show it in the alternate location. The only way to get this out of the no build zone would be to take that, just imagine that purple rectangle and slide it so that it lines up on this no build line, and you can see that it's the 36-inch tree is right in the middle of the barn. John gave you a lot of reasons why it was unfavorable to him to move it someplace like out here, because it would be crowding his house, his addition that he wants to build, and the patio. And with this much lawn, he is, very strong of the opinion that he would like this further away from the home, outside of sort of the view shed that he's going to be having from his patio. The house is at an angle, it's not square to the street, so the view is more or less out like that. And in this location, the barn is out of the way. But the next step from here would be that the 36-inch tree would be lost. And I think that would be a shame. I don't think anybody would like for that tree to go, especially considering that this area is grass, this area is grass. If we can put it here and save both trees, I think that's a better solution. I just wanted to have an opportunity to sort of present our reasoning and show you a diagram of this before we put pen to paper. Each time we do this, obviously, it's a cost to the applicant, and we're trying to get some feedback. So that's what I have to say this evening.
Okay, one question, maybe it's a dumb question, but it seems to me if we rotated that barn 90 degrees, would it fit underneath the tree? Probably not the best description.
John, this is where you get to speak your piece, but you have to come up here.
John McGurk, 24 Princeton Street. If we turned it that way, we'd be past our 20-foot setback on that side. Also.
By how much? Just, just looking at it, it looks to me like you could go as close to that tree as you plan to go now. If you-
Well, I have the 2 to
90
30-inch tree that's underneath that there, so it's tight to fit in. One, I'd be incurring on the no-build zone, the setback, and it would be right on that tree too. And I think it's close enough for, if that tree would be in the way also.
The other reason is the orientation of the barn now. The door is here. And so when you turn that on end like this, then you're gonna have the driveway coming right across the yard, directly in front of the patio. So
Yeah.
everything here,
Does the
it
door have
allows
to be
us
on
to-
that end?
I'm sorry?
Does the door, is that a showstopper? Couldn't the door be on one of the long walls?
Well, it's a 2-level type structure, so it has to be on the tall section. The front, that's the thing about it, is the neighbors really like the design of the building, and the neighbor to this side here has a pool just off this vegetable plant here, so he really likes the location of it. And being a 2-level like that, the ridge height's only 16 feet. So the door has to go on that side. This is the only way onto the property to come down back to it, as Bill drew out there. So, I mean, I've been through a lot of ways to try and move things, but that's about it.
Yeah, and the other thing I just want to point out is, don't forget about this drain easement here, that, the suggestion about, well, why don't we put it on this side? There's an awful lot of this property that's encumbered by either the drain easement or the zoning setbacks, and, now you're 35 and 50 zones, so there's an awful lot of this land that's already encumbered. We're trying to make the best of the situation here, preserving these 2 trees, and it will comply with the criteria of your zoning, or your wetland regulations that would allow you to grant this waiver. That's why we have all that information on the plan. It would allow you to grant the waiver. So we're hopeful. Well, I'll stop.
Okay, now, one other quick question. On the site visit, I mean, there was material stored throughout the property.
Right.
Is there any material stored in the no disturb and no build zones?
Everything is being cleaned out of there.
It's,
Everything is, all the sheds are gone except for one, which will be up here, and everything's cleaned out. No debris, no construction equipment, anything. So it'll all be gone.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I've been working on getting it out of there before the winter time, because once you get back there, it's a little bit damp, so I don't want to.
Okay, and how, I see 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 sheds within the setback lines. How does that work with zoning?
Those are all going. This one down at the bottom was a greenhouse. The other ones were sheds. Only one is going to stay, and it's going to be moved up next to the garden area up at the front of the property.
So the shed underneath the proposed barn, it says TBR to be removed, I presume?
That's going too, yes.
But the others do not have that connotation?
Well, they're going too. This one up here is going, and this one's going.
Okay, that should be shown on the proposal then.
It's just off the
Oh, yeah,
screen
there's
here.
the arrow for it up the top, I think.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have for questions right now, so let me turn it over to Vanessa and to Ann. So Vanessa, do you have any questions?
Yes, excuse me. Just curious, so this might just be an oversight on the plan, but the rainwater collection cubes, they seem to still be associated with the formerly proposed outline. Would those be moving along with the new footprint of the barn?
Yeah, the purpose of this is just a discussion plan, and obviously, if we got some feedback we thought would be positive, we would obviously redraft the plan. Those rain collections would be shifted up to, coincide with the new location. The driveway would be relocated. We'd have all this properly drafted. What you don't see, the matrix table just off the bottom of the plan would all be updated as well.
Okay. And then just curious, so it sounds like you've really tried to look at a lot of different options. Have you explored the option of approaching the zoning board about relief from the side setback?
No, we haven't. And it's just another logistical hurdle that, what would be the reasoning, what would be, it's just another expense. And the plan we presented to the commission was compliant with your criteria to allow a waiver. So I don't think we would need to do that.
Okay. I will say that I'm pleased to see that there's nothing within the 35 anymore. And I don't have any further questions.
Okay, thanks, Vanessa. Ann, do you have any questions or comments?
The gravel, that's still the gravel driveway that we talked about in the last meeting, right?
That's correct.
Coming right down into the barn, okay. It seems terribly close to this tree here. I mean, it's only a visual, of course. I try to remember that tree. It's a very tall tree, isn't it?
75 feet.
Next to the barn, next to your proposed barn here?
It is probably, John says 75 feet at least.
Okay. Any branching issues there, or issues that could cause the tree to die?
No.
Is it that close? I can't tell how close it is.
It's within about 3 or 4 feet, and it is close.
Okay.
But with the monolithic foundation, we are hopeful that the tree will not be impacted. The best scenario would be if you're in favor of moving out of the 35 zone, the best scenario would be to just kick this over a few feet and give much more separation here to give that tree the greatest chance of survival.
But that increases your square footage within the no-build zone.
We would still be compliant.
Okay.
Because it's still less than what was proposed.
It's still less, okay. Visually, that was the only thing that I could see that was kind of problematic here. Now, the sheds are all going, is that correct?
Yep, this shed here is going to be removed. This shed here will be relocated over to here. And this, call it a shed, but it's one of those, it has the arched aluminum frame on it with a canvas cover. That will be removed as well.
Okay.
As well as all the debris that was back along the fence. All of that gets removed. And let's not forget, there was over 700 square feet of shrub plantings along the back fence line.
That's right.
As mitigation for all of this.
Now, you're not going to continue with that shrub, or are you? Along the back?
We would still do that because we would be, assuming we have some good feedback this evening, we would still need to come back and ask for a waiver in the no-build zone. So we would still need that support.
Okay. Yeah, because that looked, on the last diagram, that looked very good, very strong, having that bank protected there. Okay, I don't have any other questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple more follow-up questions. How high is the roof line of this barn supposed to be? I hear 16 feet?
It's a multi-level structure, so that the highest point is 16 feet, but then it drops down to what, about 11 foot?
Yeah.
Yep. So there'll be a bank of windows along that step up.
And how will that impact the tree? I mean, we're talking about the roots, but you're gonna have to cut branches down to make that fit underneath there?
I don't believe so. Perhaps that we do. If we do, they'll be properly limbed.
They're pretty much 30 feet up in the air. Big stuff.
And The depth of the footing, how did we get by with 18 inches? I thought there was a 4-foot requirement.
It's for this sort of structure, which is, we call it the barn, but it's really a glamorized work shed. It's a workshop and a storage area for John's stuff. It just doesn't need a 4-foot footing on it.
And that's through the building inspector, I'm presuming that?
Well, it's going to get
I
a
know,
building
'cause my
permit.
shed sits on, slabs. That's why I'm curious that you're going down 18 inches, and I don't understand why it's not 4 feet. But if it's good with the building inspector, that's fine with me. My final question is, you're moving one shed to the position shed A down at the bottom, which is within the zoning setback requirements. How does that work with the
Right.
zoning?
I can speak to that, Bill, if
Yep.
you don't. Yeah, so as long as it's 120 square feet or less,
Or
it can be
less.
5 feet off the setback. So that is less than the setback for the R2 district here, which is 15. But if it's 120 or less, then he's all set, does not need zoning. And he will need a building permit to move it, he'll find that, and the building inspector will say, if it's over 120,
80 square foot.
perfect, so then he's all set. As
Okay.
long as that's 5 feet away, he's good.
Okay, just one comment. I mean, I like the fact that you're trying to get it out of the no disturb zone. But I really would like to see you twist it 90 degrees and possibly go into the setback area. I think, from a wetlands perspective, that's a better scenario. That being said, you have your reasons, and you can, propose whatever you'd like, but I'd like to see you do that.
From the other two commission members, are there any deal breakers that you see?
Vanessa or Ann, did you?
No, I don't see any. I'm just that close tree, but other than that, I think you've moved it away from where it was originally, which was practically on the slope there. And no, I don't have a problem here.
Georgia, can you move the plan a little bit so I can see closer to the street, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Thank you. I was just, trying to rethink things, and I was trying to remember how the approach was from the street. So it does show that the concrete driveway is already on the same side as where the path is proposed, and there's not a driveway on the other side, and I think the gate is also on that side as well. It would be obviously very convenient if there was access from that lower side of the house that you could go straight into the barn, and you'd be kind of, again, out of the view shed of the patio, but I don't think we have that option here. But I agree with Peter that I would be interested in seeing that other option that he mentioned. I do think this is a good step in the right direction, and we're heading in the right direction, but and I definitely understand and respect wanting to keep the trees. Just also trying to work. I know it's, Bill, as you're saying, that it meets the criteria, but it is at our discretion. So it's not, we still have to try to make sure we're all feeling good about the end product.
All right.
Just one quick add-on comment with, asking that you ask for relief from the setbacks. I think I heard you say that your abutters are happy with what you're proposing. So I would think, if you had to go into the setbacks by, can't be more than 4 or 5 feet, that your abutters are not really going to have much of an issue with it. And if you do have to go, you would have to go for variance, is that what they call it at the ZBA?
Yes.
And you have to tell them that you have a hardship, and your hardship would be that, the Conservation Commission is asking that you not go into our no-build and no-disturb zones, so.
I have a drawing of the building, Peter, you want to take a look at it?
Sure.
Which is one of the reasons that my the abutter would like it to go.
Hold on,
with
John,
theirs.
they can't hear you. I just want to make sure the two members can hear you.
You know what I'm saying? The difference height.
Right.
That would be against that abutter's property, the tall part of it. And then I'd have to move the door around.
Okay, let's just, and you understand where we're coming from too, so. Okay, Georgie, could we get this into the packet for the next meeting?
Yeah, we'll make sure John can email me that, and I'll give it to the board, the other two members.
That way the other board members can see it in the packet for the next
Yep.
meeting. Okay. And we'll have to make sure that Mike gets to see this talk, so he's informed for our next meeting.
Yep.
And is there any public comment on this proposal? Hearing none? Okay, so we are going to continue to our January 8th? Is that the?
8th, yeah.
Bill, is that when you're proposing to come back?
We'll continue it to that date, but John and I will have to talk.
January
and-
12th,
Okay,
sorry.
good, perfect.
Yeah.
Would you-
January 12th.
12th. Okay, not sure when my Thursdays are falling 1 month from now. Okay, if someone can make a motion, we will continue to the January 12th meeting, please.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for the notice of intent for 24 Princeton Street, DEP file number 141392 to our January 12th meeting.
I second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, thank you, guys. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Next up is a notice of intent for a right-of-way between Elm Street and Purchase Street, DEP file number 14-1395. The applicant is the town of Danvers Electric Division, and that's, sir? Yeah.
Yes, so Bill Manuel, Wetlands and Land Management, here for Danvers Electric Division. And this is Anthony Calasabetta. He is with the Electric Division. He can answer any questions you have about the electric line that's in question here and the purpose or anything else, and I can certainly answer any issues relating to the Wetlands Protection Act. First of all, this filing is only under the Wetlands Protection Act. It is exempt from your Danvers Wetlands bylaw because it is the maintenance of electric infrastructure. So Georgia and I have discussed this before we started out the project, and we're certain that this meets the criteria to be exempt from your bylaw. Having said that, when I was out on the right-of-way, I flagged all wetlands. One of the main differences between the Danvers Wetlands bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act is there are certain areas of intermittent streams that are not jurisdictional under the state regulations, those being those that are up gradient of a bordering vegetated wetland. The Danvers Wetlands bylaw does not take exception on that, and all intermittent streams are jurisdictional. We've flagged everything in the field, and that way, once construction starts, those areas can be protected as well, even though they're not subject to regulation under this application. So this area between Elm Street and Purchase Street is an old rail grade. It's under the ownership now of Mass DOT. On the northerly side of it, or the, let's just say the upper or right side of those red lines, is a 23,000 kV electric line overhead. And Anthony will tell you what's one of the most important pieces of electric infrastructure in the town of Danvers. That length of line services about a third of the town. The problem is that it is an old rail grade, and it hasn't been maintained in any way for the purpose of allowing vehicles to get up and down that length of right-of-way and service the line when needed. Right now, there are two rails that in most places stick up above grade, about 4 inches or so. The ties are still embedded in the right-of-way, and so it's inaccessible for the vehicles and equipment that the Electric Division has in order to service that line when needed. And there have been cases where service was needed in an emergency situation, and they had to outsource to another vendor with the proper equipment to be able to get down the right-of-way. So we would like to head off another situation like that, and it's a very simple solution. Electric Division has talked with Mass DOT, and they are going to allow for Electric Division to bring in crushed stone and cover the rails and the ties right up to the top of the rails. They're not allowed to remove the rails, but they're just going to cover them so that it will be basically a 12-foot wide gravel service road that runs down the middle of the electric right-of-way. The wetlands are generally found on both sides of the railroad embankment. The embankment is generally either at grade or has been filled relative to the adjacent landscape, and so there are ditches along both sides. On the lower side of that diagram, or the left side, everything on that side is about a 1,000 linear foot ditch. It emanates about here from a culvert pipe and then goes to roughly here and flows into a catch basin. All of that is up gradient of a wetland. There are no wetlands on this side of that right-of-way. So all of that would be Danvers jurisdictional intermittent stream. On the northerly side, we have a ditch that starts right about here, and it runs down to a point about here where it enters a bordering vegetated wetland. And from that point, there are wetlands or stream that come down to Canal Street and go into a culvert pipe right here, and I don't know where it goes after that. So we have this length that is Danvers jurisdictional only, and this length that is Mass Wetlands Protection Act. So we do need an order of conditions. What we're suggesting is construction methodology. This will be done in phases, and that all depends on the budget, the time constraints. We're hoping that the DPW will be able to do this work. So it's whatever time constraints they have, or personnel availability and materials. So if they have opportunity and they have money to buy crushed stone and mobilize equipment, they'll do a run of whatever they can get done. I've suggested as an order of conditions that they notify the Conservation Commission agent before, on a day of doing work. The work is simple enough. I've also suggested that they install a 9-inch straw wattle on either side of this, where the stone is going to go down. The stone will cover the ties and the rails and extend about 3.5 feet off both sides of the ties, so the total width is 12 feet, and that will be sufficient for running say a bucket truck or something down that line. As they're placing the stone, the wattle should be repositioned on both sides so that there's always protection against any, I'll say, sedimentation to both sides, but we're not very concerned about sedimentation at all because we're using crushed stone. We're not using soil. So once it gets placed and rolled, it's pretty stable. So that's the protocol. There are a few locations, and on the last sheet of this plan set here, there is photographs of what the right-of-way looks like right now. I have a diagram of what the repair would be, and also there are certain areas on the far right photograph where there's a little bit larger washout. So there's 3 or 4 areas like this, and those will get a sort of a different treatment. Those will get, say, 12-inch minus or larger stone to fill in those voids so that it can bring the grade back up. And then, here's the rail up here. This is the rail. And and then they'll put a driving surface on top of that. So there's about 3 or 4 areas that's probably the worst of it. And, but those will have larger stone to bring it back up. But there you see the rails, the ties are just off either side there, and it's a really bumpy ride to try to drive down there. But there's the overhead line, and so very important maintenance feature so that they can have access when they need to. And so if you have any questions.
Yeah, one quick one right off the bat, Bill. Is this typical of the length of the proposed work, that width?
Pretty darn close, yep.
Picture on the left.
Yep.
The reason I ask is as you're bringing up the grade, you're going to, your footprint's going to expand, right? So is that going to have an impact on the wetlands that are in question here?
No, because the wetlands are well off at the bottom. In most cases, they're like 5 to 15 feet lower than this track grade.
What's that high, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All the ditches are, especially the upper ends of them, were dug deep so that they have pitch down to ultimately the, you know, what I call the real wetland.
Okay, and I mean, it sounds like you have a pretty well-defined erosion control plan.
Yep.
And I know you said it was kind of up in the air as to when this work would be done. Could you just give us a little better idea of when it would happen?
Good evening, Anthony Colishmeta, Safety Risk Manager, Danvers Electric. So long story short, I reached out to Chuck Farrell, DPW Street Division Supervisor. They're gonna help us facilitate all this work. So what we're gonna try to do, once we get approval from you guys and our budget gets approved, probably February, we'll start doing it, weather permitting, hopefully. But, you know, as Bill said, we'll reach out to Stephen King, Georgia as well. Stephen King's a town engineer. There is a washout by Lawrence Street Park, which you showed, and we're gonna fix that. Other than that, it's really cut and dry. The Mass DOT gave us the okay to cover the tracks. We're gonna pull them up originally. They asked us not to, just leave them.
Yeah.
It won't be really crushed stone, it'll be more of a crush and run, so it can bind and hold tight. Because these trucks are probably 120,000 pounds, the heavy vehicles. And right now, we have an issue down there, which we did back in, when the Pats beat Seattle in the Super Bowl, that big storm we had, we couldn't get down there. So now I have to call Power Line Construction. They have a big vehicle that gets down there. But the problem is, this line feeds all of East Danvers and Mass General. So when that goes down, we have major issues and major switching to perform.
Right.
So it's just really, it's really a maintenance row. And then the part towards Elm Street and the part towards Purchase Street, Mass DOT wants to put gates up. They don't want this to be a rail trail. Nobody's gonna police this, unfortunately, but they want gates on both sides so the public can't access it. Even though they may, and they understand they may, but it'd be a gate saying, do not enter, Danvers Electric, blah, blah, blah. You know, we can get to that point. We're not even there yet. We have a ways to go. But that's what we're proposing to do.
That's, well, as an aside, I mean, that's interesting because this is a logical extension of the new rail trail.
Well, we can't say that, but yeah.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah, exactly.
We can
Yeah,
have
we'll cross
those
that bridge down the
internal
road.
discussions.
Right, because ideally, on the other side of that, going down towards the Polish Club, Cheever Street, that's all EPA. The old Crease and Cook used to be, so they're
On
clean.
the other side of 128.
Correct. We have a line going down there as well, but we can get that from the end of Cheever Street. We can access that a little bit
Right.
and up towards 128.
But that's hazardous.
But the
area.
EPA is gonna put a road in to maintain the overhead as well. That's on their end. So this end is on our end. So we're gonna try to do it in-house and, you know, in the proper way, obviously.
I'm just an advocate of the bike trails, so you probably.
Well, that's why it's gonna be a nice, so not crushed stone per se, more of a crush and run, like a lin pack, so it binds. So our trucks can go over it, and it won't get all deformed.
Okay, now, one of my final question, where is your funding coming from? Is that operational?
Yeah, operational.
funding? It's
yeah.
not a town meeting issue?
No, it's operational. Like I
Okay,
said, we're gonna try to do it in-house to keep the cost down. So Chuck Farrell said, winter time, other than plow and snow, is there slower time? So they can help us out doing that.
okay.
So it shouldn't, you know, like I said, like Bill was saying, it'll be done in phases. We're gonna try to get it done fairly quick, but all depends, material, availability, trucking, So there's a lot of logistics here we have to do. Talk to Conservation Committee, get the hay bales. There's a little bit of logistics before we even start.
Right.
But we just need the
Okay,
okay
so
from
when
you
you-
guys to say, we can do, we can go forward in doing it. Because right now, we are in a jam. And another thing too, there's a road, I forget what the road name is, off the side of Purchase, but people access that road, all the neighbors, and they dump all types of debris back there. Yard clippings, leaves, trash. So
Out behind Walgreens, that area?
yes, so we're gonna put another gate right there as well, so they can't access that. So right now, it's a free-for-all, unfortunately. So sometimes we have to go down to a DPW with a big backhoe to push all the leaves out or get the debris out of there. And there is some, shopping carriages in there. We're gonna clean the whole thing out as we go. That's the plan anyways. So like I said, it's not gonna it's about 2,000, I think it's 2,300 feet thereabouts, Bill, something like that. It's a good portion.
It's a half mile or so?
Yeah, it's a good, so it's gonna take a little time and obviously funding. So, it is part of the budget. The budget has not been approved yet, but we have to do something here, because we're kind of stuck,
Right,
unfortunately.
that's-
We did want to move the line, but to move that line is major money. And to go underground, it's almost virtually impossible, because we don't really own that land. And like Bill said, it drops off quite a ways. But that's our proposal.
Let me ask Ann or Vanessa, do you have any questions? Ann, why don't you go first?
Okay, is the intermittent stream along the entire stretch here, when you're talking about an intermittent stream?
So I'll show with my laser pointer, and Georgia can
Okay.
follow with her cursor. From there's a culvert outlet on the southerly side of the right-of-way. It begins right about here, and it runs to about this location here. That's about 960 linear feet.
Uh-huh.
And then on the other side, there is just the beginning of a ditch, about right in this location, and that runs down to about the edge of this property here. This area is a vegetated wetland. You can see on the GIS plan, there's a stream entering. So this is a vegetated wetland. And then the stream flow continues right along the base of the rail embankment. But from this point down, from within and out of this bordering vegetated wetland, is now state-regulated resource area, BVW and/or intermittent stream. And that runs down to right here behind Canal Street, and there it enters a culvert, presumably heads off in this direction, but I don't know. But-
Okay.
And then from the rest of it towards Purchase Street on both sides, there's nothing there.
Okay, okay. It seems that in some cases that this stream is running very close to people's properties in terms of their houses or whatever they have in their yards there. Is this accurate?
Especially behind Lawrence Street, it is in the right-of-way. The right-of-way is, I think it's, is 85 feet wide?
Yeah, it's pretty wide.
It's pretty wide, so these
Okay.
ditches were cut, when the railroad was operational, they were cut in within the limits of the railroad right-of-way.
Okay, okay.
Folks along here especially, and a lot of the yards have maintained almost, back to the edge of the embankment. As you get closer to Elm
Oh, okay.
Street, they were more like a wooded buffer. And then folks up here, pretty much all of them had some kind of fence in their
Okay,
backyard.
yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that was all I was concerned with, is these boundaries here.
Okay, thanks, Ann. Vanessa?
No additional questions. Everything's been answered.
Yep, and I did want to point out that we do have a file number. It's 14-1395 with no comments from DEP.
Okay, is there any public comment? Hearing none? Okay, I mean, I think it's a good project. Let's get it done. If someone could make a motion that we issue an order of conditions?
think we need to close the public hearing first.
Say again?
Close the public hearing?
Oh, do we want to close it? You're right. Okay, someone can make a motion, we'll close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing for the notice of intent for the right-of-way between Elm and Purchase Street, DEP file number 14-1395.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now if someone can make a motion for order of conditions, please?
I'll make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for the right-of-way between Elm and Purchase Street, DEP file number 14-1395.
And there's just one condition that because the construction is going to be done intermittently, I guess, for lack of a better word, that they would have to notify the planning division before work it commences for that time period.
Conservation.
Conservation,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, not so much the commission, but the staff. Okay, so that's part of the motion then, so if someone can make a second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good.
Thank you all.
Next up is a request for determination of applicability for Route 114, Route 1 ramp, mile marker 13.6. The applicant is Mass DOT Highway Division. Someone is here from DOT tonight. Can you just give us an overview of the project?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Wilson and members of the commission. My name's Sam Campbell. I'm an environmental scientist with Greenman Peterson, Inc. We are the design consultant for Mass DOT on this project. Also in attendance this evening are my colleagues Alexa Marquis, also from GPI, and Courtney Walker from MassDOT Environmental Services. So, as you mentioned, the project here is the reconstruction of Route 114. The portion of the project within Danvers begins at the Danvers-Middleton municipal boundary at the Ipswich River Bridge and extends east along Route 114 to the on-off ramps for Route 1. So I'm sure members of the commission are pretty familiar with Route 114. It experiences a fair amount of delays due to both the traffic volume as well as the existing intersection operations. It's also a pretty hostile environment if you're a pedestrian. So this project is seeking to address those issues. As I mentioned, the existing traffic signal equipment is pretty outdated. It doesn't have, the features that we see at modern intersections like actualization and detection. In addition to that, there's a lack of pedestrian signal phasing at a lot of the crosswalks, or no crosswalks at all, and inconsistent pedestrian landings and sidewalks. So that's the majority of the work here, is the installation of those new traffic signals and signage.
Excuse me, how many how many sign setups are there in that stretch? I can only think of one.
Yep, so I can give you the details. We're modifying the signal timings at Route 114 and Watson Parkway and Rosewood Drive. That's the big one. We're also going to be installing an intersection warning sign and flashing beacons on the Route 114 eastbound approach as you head towards Teal Machine Way. So I think one of the issues there is that we do see a fair number of rear end and side angled collisions due to people not realizing that they're coming up to, a location where new traffic is going to be entering Route 114. So those are the two big ones. And Georgia, would you mind pulling up the plans?
Yes.
Just so we can walk through them?
And whatever you need, just shout it out, and I'm happy to switch over to anything. Let me
Perfect.
just
Thank you.
plans up. There is a little lag between the virtual and the not, so
It's still faster than when we used to do it with the poster boards.
that is very
Paper plan
true.
sheets.
Let's all tip our hat to that. So whatever page you want, I'm happy to start at any.
Yeah,
page.
if you want to just start at the beginning, I figured we can kind of walk through. So yeah, this is the first sheet of the construction plans. As you can see, the left side of the sheet is actually our portion of work in Middleton. And we were in Middleton last night, actually, to present the RDA for that community. We pick up our work in Danvers to the right, and you can see that area of pink shading. That just represents some grading that we're doing within the riverfront area to the Ipswich River. There's no increase in impervious surface cover there. That is a temporary impact that as we replace the existing guardrail and reconstruct the pavement there, we're going to do some grading to tie back into the existing elevations. And upon completion of the project, that area will be stabilized with a native seed mix. During construction, erosion and sedimentation controls will be in place around the limit of work. You can see it just extends a little bit further. Then we have the termination of the riverfront area. And as we continue along Route 114 for the next few sheets, we're actually completely outside of jurisdictional areas. Until we get here, the property is about 347 Andover Street. There's a culvert that goes beneath the roadway. Again, you see that transparent green hatching. That's another area where we're going to be doing some grading and guardrail replacement. All vegetation that's disturbed during construction will be restored with a native seed mix. No increase in impervious surface cover there either. Again, we're outside the resource area as we approach Center Street. There's a small wetland system here. All of the work in this location is limited to the footprint of Route 114, so there's no widening and no grading outside. It'll just be reconstruction in place. And if you could jump forward another slide. One more. Okay, and that brings us to the Watson Parkway, Rosewood, Andover intersection, which is really where the bulk of this work is going to be happening. The areas that you're seeing in red are a new sidewalk that's going to be going in on Rosewood, and those red areas indicate the proposed increase in impervious surface cover. That represents a total of about 426 square feet of impervious surface cover introduced into that area, only within areas that are currently developed as lawn, so not, natural vegetation, but manicured landscaped lawn. The green area is, again, just temporary, tying into those existing grades and allowing for construction phase site access. So that's the limits of the work within jurisdictional areas. It's limited to the 200-foot riverfront area at the Ipswich River and the 100-foot buffer zone to several wetland systems and stream systems. We don't have any work within bordering vegetated wetlands, isolated vegetated wetlands, bank or land underwater, or floodplain for that matter. As I mentioned earlier, erosion and sedimentation control measures consisting of compost filter tubes or silt fences will be maintained around the limit of work for the duration of the project. Disturbed areas will be restored with a native seed mix. And as far as stormwater improvements go, we will be cleaning, repairing, replacing existing drainage pipes and catch basins, and installing 3 new deep sump catch basins along the corridor. It's really all I have for discussion here, and I'd be happy to turn it back over to the commission at this point for any questions.
Sure, thanks. So there's no work within the 35 or the 50-foot borders?
So in some cases, in Georgia, would you mind going back, I think 2 slides?
Yes. This one?
Sorry, one more.
One more?
2 more.
Yep, no problem. This
There
one?
we go. So as you can see, in this location, there will be work within those zones. However, it's because the existing roadway is already in that location. It's not new incursion into the 25 or 35-foot no disturb zones. It's the existing footprint of work.
But any disturbance will be,
Right, and the other piece of that is that as a state entity, MassDOT maintains exemption from local bylaws. We certainly try to meet them as best we can whenever we're doing work, but in a situation like this, it's just not possible to avoid any temporary work within those areas.
And I'd add that we also in turn offer the same, so limited projects, which you guys have referenced in the RDA. The Danvers Conservation Commission has in their bylaw that says if you're limited status, you are exempt from the 35 and 50 requirement. So
Yeah,
it's a family married there, yeah.
perfect. Yeah, and all this work, as you mentioned, Georgia, is either limited or completely exempt because it's redevelopment of existing impervious area.
okay, is this project in connection with the project further east on 114? And 114 is getting a lot of attention
It
now.
certainly is. I know we have another one that's further west on 114. They're all being constructed and designed separately. So this is a separate project from whichever that one is.
Okay, all right, let me turn it over to Ann and Vanessa, and see what they have for questions, and then we'll see where we go from there. So Ann, do you have any questions?
Yes, it appears that this is going to be done in sections here, not all at once. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I mean, generally, a degree of the work is up to the contractor. We include numerous items in the contract kind of indicating what they must do or must achieve, or certain things that they can't do, but ultimately, you're correct in that they're not going to necessarily construct this whole 1 mile segment all at once. They'll probably
Right.
move down the road.
Because traffic would be horrendous.
Right, so it won't be, right, they won't close a stretch of 114 to all traffic and, shut it down. It'll be certainly some lane closures and portions of the roadway closed at different times, but so yeah, I wouldn't say, careful, we don't want to make it seem like this is all being broken up into much smaller segments, but the construction will be phased to a degree.
Okay, all right. I think that was some, in looking at this, because it's spread over, but it's still the same route. And of course, it has a lot of congestion at certain spots and certain times. So I assume that they're going to take all of that into consideration.
Yep, there's been a lot of study of the traffic operations along this corridor, and the signal timings being implemented should address a lot of the issues that we see with the congestion.
Okay. All right, that's the only comment I have.
Okay, thanks. Vanessa, do you have any questions or comments?
I have one. What's the plans for staging any of the equipment or materials for this project?
So again, I think the final location of, where equipment is stored during construction depends to a degree on contractor means and methods, but essentially the only area that they're permitted to work is within the state highway layout. This project does not involve any right-of-way takings or easements, so all the work, storage, stockpiling, and staging will either be done within the state highway layout of 114 or off-site at a location designated by the contractor.
I'm sorry. I'm wondering to that, does MassDOT ever, for example, Home Depot is down the street and they have a massive parking lot. Is that something maybe the contractor would call a nearby area and say, hey, can I use this as a staging area? Or is that something more, again, probably up to the contractor, I'm not sure, but I was just more interested.
Yeah, so I've never encountered that.
Okay. Yeah.
Granted, I don't necessarily work on the contractor side as much, but typically projects that MassDOT undertakes are limited to the right-of-way that it obtains.
Okay.
And we're presuming that the contractor's cognizant of all the wetlands precautions they have to take.
Yep, we typically have, they receive a set of plans like the ones you're seeing that show all of the boundaries and indicate the mitigation measures and protection measures that should be implemented during construction.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And they'll receive a copy of this permit application as well as the determination in the bid documents.
Okay, Vanessa, was that it?
Yeah, no further questions.
Okay, thanks. Okay, do you have an idea when this project would start?
Yeah, so I think last night, so the advertisement date is scheduled for February. So it'll be advertised and then contractors will be able to bid in the spring. I think optimistically work gets started in fall 23. But depending on weather and how next winter goes, it may not really begin in earnest until spring 23.
Okay, and this is all state funded, so it's not waiting for any local funding.
Yep, it's all transportation improvement funding. So MassDOT with then some coming from federal highway.
Okay, good. And I think I heard you say that you've already filed an RDA application with Middleton?
Yes, we were in Middleton last night and we received a negative determination on that.
Okay. Sounds like you've got it pretty well covered. So this is a public hearing, right, Georgia? So, is there any public comment that we would see virtually, I would guess?
Nope.
Seeing none, why don't we close the public hearing then, so someone can make a motion to that effect?
Okay, where are we? I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing on the Rowan, okay, am I on the right thing here? Rowan Elm purchase. No, is that, I'm on the wrong one. am I?
Item number
next-
5.
Number
Ann.
5.
Number 5. The Route 114 determination of applicability, 3110 CMR 10.05, and the DCC file number 2022-5 to close the hearing for this.
I heard a negative determination of applicability?
No, she's closing the public hearing,
Okay.
so she needs a second
Okay,
on
so,
that.
motion's
Yeah,
been made
we-
to close the hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now if someone can make a motion to issue a negative determination of applicability for this project, please?
I'll make a motion that we issue a negative determination of applicability for the Route 114 project, DCC file number 2022-5.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you all very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
A notice of intent for 8 and 8R Greenleaf Drive, 7 and 9 College Pond Road, College Pond Drive, 15 Labeo Drive, 40 Summer Street, DEP file number 14-1394. Two things on this. The applicant has requested that we continue to our 12/22 meeting, but we're hoping to have that.
Yes, so I have confirmation from them. They were our only applicant for that 12/22 date, and they have requested to continue to 1/12.
Okay,
So we will not have a meeting on 12/22.
perfect. So if someone
Okay.
can make a motion to change to that date, please? Which would be
I'll make a
12
motion,
1/12.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing. Oh boy, this is so many properties. For 8 and 8R Greenleaf Drive, 7 and 9 College Pond Drive, 15 Labeo Drive, and 40 Summer Street, DEP file number 14-1394 to our January 12th meeting.
Yes.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now the second part of that is we have a site visit scheduled for this Sunday, the 11th,
Yes,
at
Yes.
10
10
a.m.?
a.m. Yep.
Okay,
And
and
if
right now,
anyone's-
that's a go.
yes, and that
Wait,
is open to the public. We did notify that Steve King should have reached out to any of the neighbors that he's been in conversation with for a while now. But if you're watching and you're interested, you can email me, Georgia Pendergast, and it is open to the public. I'll send an email out to everyone about meeting location. But weather looks good. If for some reason Saturday morning, it looks like Sunday's gonna be absolutely horrible, we will push it off.
Okay, I know I have it down as Sunday morning. Are we going Sunday or Saturday?
Sunday morning,
It's the
Okay,
Sunday,
9
the
a.m.?
9,
11th. Is that what time we said, 9?
I'm gonna have to
No.
double check. I don't wanna,
But
I
there's going to be an
apologize.
email coming tomorrow,
There's been a lot of,
Okay,
just to confirm it all. And,
Um,
and maybe a phone call to Mike, just to make sure that he's aware.
okay.
That was going to be my question too about the time. I thought it was at 9.
It is at 9 a.m., so I'm looking at my
okay.
calendar now, and
Yeah.
that way, members of the public or anyone watching, it is 9 a.m. Sunday, the 11th.
okay.
All right,
Perfect.
perfect.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's been voted on, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
older new business, the only new business we have to deal with is that we need a new member. So I think Georgia said there's some applicants already
Yes.
in the works, we hope?
Yes, I've reached out to some people, and we also have an associate member seat open in the recent weeks as well. So we'll be putting out 2 calls for volunteers.
Any idea how long it takes to fill that?
It should be fairly quick. So the town actually keeps a binder of there's an application. You can just fill one out if you're interested in volunteering. So I went through that, and there were a number of people that specifically noted Conservation Commission. Some maybe back to 2018. So I'm weeding through calling saying, hey, are you still interested? Do you still live in town? I would say maybe a month and a half until we have someone in the seat and ready to go.
Okay, because they have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Exactly, yeah, they need to be appointed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so like I said earlier, we'll miss Chelsea, but
Yes.
we wish her luck
Yes,
in
yeah.
her career, and hopefully we see her back at some time. Okay, that's good.
All right.
If someone can make a motion to adjourn, we will do so.
So moved.
All right.
Well, these guys are getting good.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay, we'll see everybody on Sunday.